Hello there and welcome. We're excited to start and host our webinar series all about the sourcing. And my name is Dima. I'm head of sourcing at Matchr, and I'm happy to see all of our live attendees. Please write in chat. Plus, if you are here, hello. I see already a lot of names. Great to see you all. Maria, Susanna, Dana. Uh, Our goal today is bring together some best experts in the industry and share our own expertise with you. As you know, it's been a year since our last webinar series, and 2022 was really hard for all of us. Recessions, layoffs, war against Ukraine influenced a lot our team especially, and our colleagues who are in Ukraine, and it changed all of our lives drastically. But despite all of that, we've been working hard all of this year and helping companies to find top talent and continue bringing the value as the best as possible. We we're hosting events like TRC, meetups, and we're creating helpful content to make your work and life easier and build some community of proactive professionals. So now you all welcome to enjoy unique sessions during next 10 weeks, learn and network. And if you're new to our community, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn and on other platforms and our monthly newsletter on website to stay up to date of all of our events. Please, somewhere here in chat should be some links. Together we will grow faster and will change recruitment world. So I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you, support Ukraine, and check all the links in description and network please as much as possible. And please write what are your expectations from the session today. I'm really curious about your comments. Right. What are your expectations about our speaker? Because today our first guest is Balazs Paroczay, and he is amazing, great speaker, like talent sourcing leader, keynote speaker, talent acquisition strategist who helped super a lot of companies to build their leadership and prognose a lot of changes in our recruitment industry. So, Balazs, I want to welcome you on the stage. Hello.
And hello everyone in the all over the world. It's amazing to see some some names that I know. So yeah, hey, here we go.
Cool. And before we start, I just want to ask a couple of questions while people write in their expectations. I know they all write like they want to learn sourcing, they want to be ahead in their career. So I think they all will receive these and many more today in the session. And a couple of questions first, like with your knowledge, what do you think top 3 things that changed sourcing and recruitment in 2022, so last year?
Wow. I would say I have 60 slides for that, Dima. But probably what I would highlight is that well, first of all, the way how people search has drastically changed. And because of that, that changes influence our words and our profession. So that's one. Second is that sourcing has become mainstream. So it's not anymore a luxury element, or not anymore a niche, or not anymore just the playground of a few. It is mainstream as employer branding or technology or analytics or whatsoever. And three, yes, we have to talk about technology because over last year, when we were talking to recruiters and leaders, we understood that there is a huge, how to say that, but there's a huge need for clarity when it comes to technology and what to use, which tool to use, how to use, whatever. So yeah, probably these three.
Yeah, amazing. Cool. And do you think any chance that like we will see this year any competitor to LinkedIn or something like super new, or it will steadily grow as last year?
Right. So I think we are already seeing huge competitors to LinkedIn. The only question is whether LinkedIn, will shut down your access to public data or not. But yes, I mean, think about ChatGPT, right? No one knew that would come, and since it's on stage, it's just like blown away the entire industry. So yes, we live in a time when these things will happen and are happening, that some comes in and like there's a huge revolution, just like making the storm on the technology market. So yes,
Yeah.
definitely we will see. I'm pretty confident about that.
Yeah. And as Leonardo in our chat already mentioned, I think it's also one of my questions. Like, this is very hype, but Chat GPT, your opinion, is it like AI generally change recruitment this year? Is timing just right or not this year?
Oh, I think it will probably will not change. The way these things work usually is that there is at the beginning there's a huge hype, and then it needs some time to get to the crowd. I always like to think back in time, right? Again, when employer branding was big, you may not even remember that time, Dima, but because you were a baby at that time. But
Yeah.
but I remember the time when employer branding was something new. When companies were not yet ready for employees to talk back or to share their feedback or to say any bad thing. I remember at the time when companies were busy deleting comments on Facebook and deleting Glassdoor reviews and these things. And now look around, that's the mainstream. Like no one does that.
Yeah.
Well, if someone does that, then that's a huge failure, right? So these things like ChatGPT will need some time to go mainstream, but definitely it's already causing some busy nights for many of us. Yes, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Let's see what it brings to us. So yeah, just want to thank you for answers and bring the stage to you and share with us some piece of wisdom. Yeah.
Oh. Thank you so much, and let's jump in. Let's start. Sylvia, on your question. So, what's my background? My name is Balazs. I'm Hungarian. I'm living in Italy. I relocated 1.5 years ago. I've got approximately 20 years in experience in sourcing, and that's spent all across, corporate side, agency side, RPO side, and for 3 years now, I'm running my own company. My company is small. It's a boutique consultancy. If you wish, it's a sourcing consultancy. So just a few of us working with giant clients, and we help them shape and improve their sourcing capability. All right, you are more than invited to, more than welcome to visit our website. This is a sourcecode.agency. Now, what I would like to talk about today is this. And before I talk, I definitely would like to ask this question from all of you. So please use the chat on YouTube or LinkedIn and try to answer this. Why is sourcing changing so fast? What do you think? I need to turn my head this way because I want to read your replies or comments. So please think about this one. Why do we have to talk? Why do we always have to talk about the changes in sourcing? What do you think? Go for it. So leave a comment in YouTube or LinkedIn. And hopefully I will see that one if I turn this way. Okay, well, nice to meet you, Celia. So why is sourcing changing? why is recruitment changing? Why do we have to always talk about these things? Anyone, please? Okay, well, it's not much thought so far. So I can bring you my answers. But okay, oh, wait. Okay, I have it. The new technology is rapidly being introduced, evolving. Okay, cool. Because there's an urgency in attracting and finding necessary talents faster. Okay, AI, tech changing fast as well. Technologies are a lot of, yes, day by day. Hi, everyone from South Africa. Hey, Melissa. The platforms and behavior is constantly changing. Right. This is all true. So many new technological solutions. Yes. Okay, keep them coming. Now I see your comments. So keep them coming. Go for it. The market is changing. Yes. What does that mean, Julia? The market is changing. What is that? What do you mean? Let's see if we have some more answers. Okay, great resignation, lack of talent out there. Oh, okay, which I think is not true. Well, partly true, right? All right. Okay, these are great answers, right? We say that technology, AI, all of these things has come into our life and it's just changed the way how people live. The way I love to think about sourcing and recruitment is that I think we need to change our methods and our technologies and our processes because basically people have changed. And yes, certainly technology is a big thing, and and digitalization. But but from a sourcing standpoint, the question is that I need to change my game because my talent has changed the game. And when you think about digitalization, I would like now for you to focus on that aspect, that how much data, like a normal user is just living on the internet, right? So when they are looking for a new bar, right, they go to Google Maps, they search. That has, by the way, a footprint on Google Maps. They may leave a review when they are looking for a new holiday, right? That's the way it goes on the on the human side, right? So our talents, our candidates have changed the game because technology certainly influenced them, but they have changed the game. Now, this thought will have some next one. So let's see this. When our candidates would like to find something on the internet, or they would like to find some information, right? This is the big change that has impacted sourcing, I believe. They want to find this information, but their framework today a little bit looks like this. It's a needle in a haystack story. If you want to find your new holiday resort, you go to Google and you search and you use some keywords, and then you may check a few results, but usually never go to page 2, page 3, whatsoever, right? The amount of data is insanely huge nowadays, and I think that's the biggest change. That change has created the biggest impact on sourcing. Let me try to give you some more details here. If we think about how people look for data, right? Because they are constantly looking for data. We know that they may use social networks, LinkedIn, or they may use web search engines. But actually, these 3 search aggregators, the search engines that you see on the screen, they have drastically changed the game in the last few years. Again, why? Because they understood that people want to find data because of digitalization. People have to find data, but people were unable to find data. Well, some people were able to find too much information, right? So that was the fiasco with Facebook. In 2018, you may remember the Cambridge Analytica story, huge failure. Mark Zuckerberg had to go to court, trying to prove that Facebook was a good player. But from a search perspective, it's important that in 2018, Facebook has killed their graph search. Facebook has understood that the normal user was not able to use the graph search, but companies were able to manipulate the graph search, and that caused huge issues on the planet. So there was a big change in the whole search story. And then it came to Google. Google last year, they again started to realize that a few things. First, that, according to Glenn Cathey, Google realized that people nowadays, quite often, we go to, for instance, to Instagram or to TikTok to find information. So Google understood that they have to change their search engines and and their direction, the way of search, because people tend to look for more image-related content and run image-driven searches than keyword searches. Right? Google was strong with keyword searches. You go there, you say holiday resort in Mexico, whatever, and then Google will find you some information. But what TikTok and Instagram have brought in the change was like, well, we search via images. So Google decided to change their story, and this will be moving on this year as well. But it's really interesting that you may remember we had the option, like search image by Google. And when we were using this, right-click search image by Google, we were able to find, like 5 years ago, we were able to find all of the other websites that a certain profile picture was also listed. Now, when you do the same story, when you go to a picture, right-click, search by Google, Google will try to look for the meaning of your search and not directly the same image anymore. It's really, well, I think it's really interesting and certainly really important, because these are the signs that these search engines are changing, and they have a new way of translation on what people want to find on the internet. Certainly, I'm a recruiter. I want to find this person on other websites, but Google now thinks that I want to find a suit or a jacket. And trust me, my jacket doesn't cost $3,000. Okay, this is important. I have to put this disclaimer out loud there. Okay, let's move on. There was recently a webinar from Hank van Ert, and you may know Hank is a journalist, an Austrian person, and he had a fantastic webinar about the recent changes on Google search. And you have to watch this webinar if you haven't yet watched it. Hank shows us that basically Google now doesn't anymore look for the keywords that you put to the search engine. Google somehow is overwriting your search query. You may search for something where Google believes, where Google cannot find that much content, so then Google will rework, rewrite, correct your search. It's really interesting. You can see that again. Watch the webinar. It's an hour long. There's so much wisdom and so much new in that whole story. We all know that the Google count, the search count, right? The number that you see when you run a search, that doesn't mean anything. It's just a number, a random number. Even Google said that number is, is passé, it's not important. The maximum number that you will anytime ever get on Google with one search is 300 results. So, so there are all of these search changes in the biggest search engine. And all of these changes have huge impact on the way how we work and how we find candidates. Also, just to give you, some technical things. So, and died on Google. If you don't pay attention and if you still use and on Google, Google will get confused. Google doesn't understand Google will just get confused, right? That's the right way to say it. So, these changes are there are so many tactical nuances changes, but the sum of all of these changes actually bring in a total new playbook for us. Now, when we think about LinkedIn, when we go further, right? So Irina Shamevo has been working so hard to try and understand how LinkedIn works. But LinkedIn is also changing the game. When you go to search, let's say when you go to this is a LinkedIn premium search or LinkedIn free search, and you put some keywords there, and then let's say you randomly change the order of these keywords, LinkedIn will not find the same results. Although I just changed the order of the words, right? Why? Because LinkedIn is trying to understand what I'm searching for. LinkedIn is trying to read my mind. But you know what? This is LinkedIn. I don't want LinkedIn to read my mind. I don't want LinkedIn to override my search query. But, well, regardless, I don't like it or what I want, LinkedIn will do that. Interestingly, when you use and on LinkedIn, regardless you change the order or not, you will get consistent results. But again, pay attention to the numbers. So this is 1,700 results with and. This is 972 results. So this is 1,400 results. It just doesn't make any sense because I'm using the same keywords, no quotation marks, no or, nothing, the same keywords. And sometimes I'm just changing the order, some just adding an and it's just inconsistent. So what I would like to say as the first thing is that, and this is I think it's a giant change in our world, is that all of these search engines, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, all of these, they work hard to make even more money, right? So Google is introducing the image-driven searches. So Google is trying to push you commercial results first. Google's interest is that you to buy something. That's their interest. So it's working hard to make money, and certainly it's working hard to please their biggest audience. But Google's biggest audience and even LinkedIn's biggest audience is probably not us, surprisingly. I like to say this, the name of the game is finding the answer versus finding all possible answers. It looks like that Google is trying to find the answer, right? So Google's interest is not anymore to show you all of the possible ways, all of the possible answers, but to show you a few, just some of the answers, and try to tell you that that's the truth. What is really sad that people couldn't learn to search, and LinkedIn and Facebook and Google understood this one, and that's why I'm saying that we are not your biggest audience. People just failed at learning to source, like to search. And that's why these search engines, have changed their search, their search algorithms. What you have to know is that even eternal truth is not necessarily true anymore. Even Boolean and, right? Like this is so basic. Boolean and doesn't have the same meaning, doesn't have the same function via multiple channels. So you have to stay skeptical. These search boxes are like the search algorithm are black box, like we don't know how these work. Like it can happen, and it happened, that will happen, that, you wake up and LinkedIn brings in a new, just a new algorithm, and then, nothing works. So you have to get used to that. And finally, you have to constantly experiment your searches. You have to constantly validate your searches. And this is the most difficult part of this whole story, that, you have some knowledge, right? You have some understanding how these things work. And then you go to the search engine and you will trust it. You will trust Google, you will trust Facebook, you will trust LinkedIn because, because we trust them. But their search mechanism may not be anymore fully trustable. You get me, right? And now, when you ask the question that, how this will be influenced by ChatGPT, I mean, God knows, really, we don't know yet. But what I see is that what is really interesting, that ChatGPT is continuing the direction towards to giving people only one answer. You ask one question and it will give you one answer. So, we can talk a lot about this one, right? Because there are some moral, ethical, whatever questions here. I don't believe in a world where we have only one answer to a question. Frankly, I think it's just not true. But from a recruiter standpoint, from a professional standpoint, I think it's really interesting, right? If there's a system which is always giving you the one answer, and and we may ask the same questions, then we all will get the same answers. I think it's really interesting. Okay, so that's point number one, right? So whatever you knew about search, you to rethink. And I want you to test again. I want you to experiment. I want you to understand that our best friend Google is not anymore that best friend, unfortunately. Okay, well, let's move on. What has happened last year? So I think what was, at least in our world, like we work with sourcing leaders, talent acquisition directors, recruiters a lot. What we learned is that clearly by the end of 2022, sourcing is not a job anymore. Sourcing is not the job of the sourcer, because sourcing is a capability. It's something that companies work hard to build. So when I joined research, when I was a researcher, right? Being a researcher was a job. And then, when I started to build sourcing functions, when was that? Oh gosh, 2002, long time ago. No, 2010-ish time. Anyway, so like quite some time ago when I started to build sourcing for companies, it was a job. We hired sourcers. But now what I see is that sourcing, like companies tend to understand more and more that sourcing is a capability. So the only question is that how can I build a company where I have the capability? Who will be having this capability? And what is really interesting that I'm going to show you three major scenarios, but the reality, the truth is that companies are having a really hybrid way of working. So, scenario number one is something we call the centralized model. When we have a group of recruiters and they have a sourcer, or they have a few sourcers. So usually these people are embedded within the talent acquisition function, and they are the experts. They are the guys like, wow, he knows the answer, whatever, right? There are pros, cons with this model, but this is quite typical, like a quite traditional model. The challenge here is that usually this is a sourcer who knows how to source, right? So he's got the power, and usually the recruiters around that person, usually they lack, like the expertise of sourcing. Now, from this model, companies often evolve into the decentralized model, which means that they create sourcing hubs or separated sourcing functions. Right, we see this one with large companies, with the Facebooks and like with the big ones, right? When they create like extremely large size sourcing armies. I was guilty with this one. I was building quite a few of this in my life before. Now, the interesting is that it's still, the sourcing expertise is still separated to group of people. However, it's not anymore just a few, right? But it's like there's a critical size of sourcers, and that's why therefore sourcing capabilities within the company. The challenge here is that if you build a sourcing function like this, then you can have constantly engagement challenges, with the recruiter functions, with the talent acquisition functions. We don't have time to go too much into details, but usually why this model is having difficulties is because it's one way how you manage sourcers. You set their goals, you give their objectives whatsoever, but those goals and those objectives are usually not the same as what you give to to your recruiters. So that's why like it's really different business interest what drives the sourcing function, what drives the talent acquisition counterpart. Now, and from this one, we also see this model. When companies start to eliminate the role of the sourcer, and everyone has to source. So recruiters have to learn to source. And this is really interesting because I clearly remember the time when I was younger, right? Put it this way. And I remember the time when I met recruiters who were like, I don't want to learn sourcing. It's so childish, like I'm a business partner, whatever, right? And this has changed. So, well, you still see these recruiters, right? I think, for not too long. But the whole mentality has changed a lot. And I see more and more this model within companies that, that they understood that they had to evolve like the entire recruitment team to the certain level that everyone should be able to source, because hey, that's just table stakes. It's just like, it's not anymore like a choice. It's, you have to source because candidates will not apply to you. But it's really interesting here is that last year was a clear year that areas where we didn't have to source before, well, now we had to start sourcing. Blue collar, really cool. I mean, I can tell you, I've never done blue collar in my life before. And over the last few years, we've got so many clients who told us that they were having issues to hire blue collar people, maybe non-exempt, right? So that maybe that's a better word. We also have clients. We have a Big Four client who came to us saying like, we have challenges with junior talent, and we had to think about how we can apply direct sourcing techniques for such a field that we never had to source for. We also had entire HR departments coming to us, like people really HR generalists, HR BP. And they said they want to source, they want to learn how to source. So this whole thing, is just like giving us the confidence or the understanding that sourcing is table stakes. If you work at a company where it's only you who is sourcing, run away, because that's really not sustainable anymore. We tend to say, when I joined, when I joined a big company, I was always constantly told that finding people is not anymore a challenge because engagement is a challenge. I was always told this one while I was a sourcing lead. But you know what? This is just bullshit. Finding some people is not anymore a challenge because you get to LinkedIn and you will find people. But finding all the right people is becoming a fucking increasing pain, I can tell you. So that's number 2, right? Number 1 is the search engine is just like kill the game. Number 2 is that sourcing has become table stakes. It's period, it's the playground with everyone. Give me 1 second. Let me check the comments if I can see if there's any comments that. Okay, I need to reply. Okay, cool. But I think we are good. Now let's move on. Let's talk about the next point, which is sourcing technology. I show you this. When you go to the Talent Tech Labs, they've recently published the newest version of this Talent Tech landscape or ecosystem. And I remember the time when I first saw this image, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like there's so many companies I've never heard about. There are so many categories, like tech categories I never thought about. Like, oh wow, it's the feeling of like endless possibilities, right? And then when you start to deal with technology, then after a while you will feel like this is just like way too overwhelming. Like, do I really have to demo with those 50 companies? And do I really need this technology whatsoever? What is the current state, at least that's how we see the world, is that talent acquisition leaders, they are bombarded with all of these offers from all sorts of technology companies. There's a huge overlap between technologies, and usually there's no enough communication between these systems. And we like to ask this question, like, what makes a tech stack really a tech stack? And this is an easy question, right? But try to answer. If you think about your technology stack, like the stack that you use within your company, you may have an ATS, you may have a CRM, you may use LinkedIn Recruiter, you may have HighReasy, like you may have some sourcing tools, so you have pieces of technologies in place. But is that really a technology stack? Is that really like all of those pieces are communicating to each other? Is it really giving you like a seamless experience, like all across your tech? Now, so what I'm trying to say is that the challenge nowadays is that it's just too much. There are just too many technology providers, and it's so easy to get lost. We had a leadership seminar last year, and we asked about our attendees, leaders, that how happy they were with their talent stack. And they said, well, no one was any happier than 7 out of 10. And that's a really important moment, because the lack of happiness is coming from the frustration that you go to your LinkedIn, you send your emails, you have your projects, right? Well, you can see the data there, but when you go to your ATS, say Workday, Workday is not communicating to LinkedIn, so you will not see that within Workday, and also because of GDPR, you are unable to pull people into that. So you have to go to LinkedIn to check the sourcing data, and you have to go to Workday to check your ATS data. Oh, by the way, your boss was sold HighReasy, so you have a new technology in place. Well, HighReasy is partly covering LinkedIn. Oh, by the way, HighReasy is also partly covering, that. They have this and that, and this is just free technologies. And then you may have video interview in place, you may have a chatbot, you may have like a toolkit, like a range of extensions. And and you just don't have any more time in your day to to actually recruit. And that's what we clearly see. there is a mindset that we want to buy these technologies, but there's no mindset to build an entire stack, right? To think through the process and to think through, okay, how all of these things, will stand together into one normal logical element. Next one, LinkedIn's got competition. So Dima, you were asking about this one, and I can tell you guys, it was so. I didn't check the questions with Dima before, but what is really interesting that after a long time, last year for me was the first moment when I really felt that LinkedIn's got real competitions. So I'm going to show you, like a few screenshots. This is Hire Easy, but there are similar providers like Hire Easy. There's Seekout, Amazing Hiring, whatever. Quite a few of these things. The great with these tools is that these tools are searching certainly within LinkedIn public data, but they are searching also within, like among other data sets like, GitHub and the web and Facebook and About Me, like a range of profiles. So my colleague was running this search. He was looking for Java developers, like in Budapest, he's got, 6,000 whatever results. Okay, fine. And he authored his search. And he said, I want to search now for the Boolean keywords, Java developer, whatever. So he was getting, 2,200 results. Fine. And then he made a tweak again. And he said, I want this system, Hire Easy, to look for the Java developer as a title. But in the keywords, as you can see on the top right corner, we say, but not, not these, things. So he was getting, 4,500 candidates. Okay. Why is this important? Because then after this one, he started to compare all of it to LinkedIn. That was really interesting. What is really interesting that these systems, so first of all, these systems look for some, look on other channels as well, or platforms than LinkedIn only. That's one. Second, that they have an AI built into their search engine. So they search way beyond the keywords, so way beyond Boolean, right? So when you say Java, whatever, developer, they will not only will they look for Java developer, but they will look for the whole semantic of Java developer. And then there are all of the extra features. So there's an improvement to search, but also these candidates, within these platforms, they all usually come with a contact detail. And I remember the time when this whole contact detail story was quite infant, like it was in its infancy or childish, whatever we say it, and I remember that it was great in the States, it was strong in the UK, and as more you move to the East, the fewer data or less data you will get in these systems. But that, again, is passé. If you go to these platforms like Hire Easy, Amazing Hiring, whatever, it's a range of technologies, they have contact details, to these candidates. And they all claim that they are GDPR compliant, so don't go there. It's a separate discussion that you need to have with them. But hey, at least it's written on their website that they are GDPR compliant. So they find more people for you. Their search engine sometimes is better than LinkedIn search engine, depending on the account you have. They have contact details to all of these candidates. They show you the LinkedIn Insights type of analytics. They have an email sequencing, so it's an automated email outreach built into the technology. And by the way, what is really important, that many of these now can communicate with your ATS. Remember, I told you that the whole dilemma, the whole challenge, within this technology story is the lack of technology stack, right? The lack of thinking that we want to connect these technologies together. And what is really interesting, with these providers now, is that they can connect with most of the ATS systems that you may have in place, right? They can connect to Taleo, they can connect to Zoho, they can connect to Smart Recruiters, whatever. They can connect, and they can also search within that database. And that's something, like significantly bigger and more promising and, stronger offer than what LinkedIn can do for you. So the only challenge with these technologies is that they are certainly heavily built upon LinkedIn data, public data. So if LinkedIn changes that one, well, God knows what will happen with these providers. But for now, they really bring in like a game changer story to efficiency. All right, let's move on. I talked about this outreach automation. Okay, so it was really interesting that for a long time in sourcing, we thought that the search part will be automated. You know, like I, if I can count that how many times I heard at conferences that within 5 years there will be no sourcers, and like your job, Balazs, will be eliminated, and you will be a person non grata. Like I heard so many times. Now the interesting thing is that bots actually didn't change the way we search, because we still have to go to, well, even How Easy has some AI implemented, right? We still have to get that. We still have to type something. We still have to write a Boolean, like, so we still have to search. But the engagement part, which we thought that's the most human touch whatsoever, the engagement part can be fully automated. And it's like, that's really interesting. So again, Dima, on your question, like, how ChatGPT will change the world, we don't know yet, but we know it will, right? It will change in a massive way. So going back to this one, there are plenty of these technologies under the sun, but last year I saw significant growth in the usage of these technologies. We have clients that use Sourcefield. We had other clients that use, Balazs or Jam. So, so it's again a list of providers. But what they do is that you create your email sequence. You can use like merge variables, right? You can say like, hey, first name, I realize that you work at company, whatever. And then you build your email sequence. You set that, let's say my first email should be sent on Monday. If there's no reply, my second email should be sent on Thursday. So you set the parameters, and then you go searching. Now that's something that you have to do, right? So you go on searching, you go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, whatever you want to search, and simultaneously you can add your candidates to these systems. And from the moment when you edit them to the system, you don't have to worry about them anymore, because the system will automatically connect with them and like message them, engage with them. And that's like massively time saving. So if you think about like, okay, what else? What's next I need in my stack? I definitely would recommend you to think about a search engine, but that search engine that can run this email automation for you. Or if you don't need the search engine, or if you don't have budget for a search engine, you can also pay for buy one of these outreach automation softwares. They save hours from your day. All right, moving on. By the way, we will have a LinkedIn automation webinar. So Vince Simchak, my colleague, is running this free webinar. It's totally free. It's 1 hour long. It's in February. And we will talk about every LinkedIn automation system. Okay, so you may want to go there. Vince spent a significant amount of time talking to all of these, like the Balazs and whatsoever. He had demos with each and every provider. I think he was talking to 20-something technologies, and then he's going to share his report with a Word. Okay, so if you want to just get there and sign up. Now, finally, I also wanted to bring you some new toys, okay, from last year. So because this is a sourcing webinar, and we like toys, and I feel like I was talking too much about the methodology, the big, the big conceptual questions like what does search mean, and how people search. So hey, let's focus on some toys. There is this whole candidate lookup story. We developed the tool, but you can even do this, like in Excel. The concept relies on the fact that, as I told you, because of the insane amount of data, people have an increasingly solid digital footprint on the web. And when we say web, that means web, social media, right? The whole digital world. And what we wanted to, so our aim with this tool was that we wanted to help you find the connection between the various social profiles and web search results for certain, for your candidates. So when you go to a candidate profile and you highlight your name, you right click, and then you can decide that where else you want to look up that person on the web. And sometimes this can save like a lot of time for you, right? Because you have a candidate on LinkedIn, he's not replying to you, so you can look up on Twitter or GitHub or wherever, and then you will immediately find them, and and that's it. Again, I think it's a big trend, and I'm really hoping that I can influence the recruiting community that LinkedIn is not the beginning and not the end of the world, really. There is this tool which we like a lot. It's called Briskin, and I think I made two. Yeah, Briskin. I guess it's briskin.com. So Briskin is a template. It's a templating extension, right? It's a free Chrome extension that you can add to your Chrome, and then you can create your email template library. As you can see, you can also use like some variables like merged fields. You create your templates, and then you will be able to use your template library with LinkedIn, with Outlook, with Gmail, with all sorts of online platforms. I can tell you, I use it a lot. I have various templates, like I connect with people because I don't want to write every time from scratch. I have, like templates when I thank for someone who has connected with me. So it's just again so much time saving. All right, and the last thing I wanted to show you is this one. And then we have a few more minutes for Q&A. So, well, it's also really interesting that, as I showed you, Google is changing the way they run the image search, right? So that's one direction. They move it, I think, that's my belief, they're moving it towards a really commercialized story. But at the same time, face recognition tools are also emerging. So there is this PMI. This is quite scary, I can tell you. You may not see on the, like here, but I didn't even upload a picture of me. I just made a photo shoot, with your little camera. That's actually me sitting in the same room. I was just doing like this and take a picture. And this tool was able to find all of my public pictures, like all of them. And as you can see, this tool can find, like my face from all sorts of angles, right? So the picture I've uploaded was, frontal picture. And then the system is able to find, like from all sorts of angles, like left, right, up, back, whatsoever. So yeah, that's also there. All right. I guess that's what I wanted to share with you today. So first thing is that you need to understand the mechanism behind the search. Like the search is not to please you. I'm sorry. The search is to please the dummies. The search is to please the regular user of the social media platforms and the internet. And we have to find a way how we can still win within this environment. That's one. The second is that when it comes to sourcing, well, it's table stakes, right? Just don't be afraid that if you find yourself, like if you have to source, let's say for a certain segment that you've never had to source, like if you had to search for nurses or, truck drivers or, whatever, it's good fun. You can apply the same method and the same knowledge and expertise to that field. 3 is the technology. And don't be blinded by all of these tech providers, okay? So don't do that. Don't say like, oh, I need to buy this because, and then, you buy a few features, but you know what? Like you bought 3 features and then 20 features you also bought, which by the way, you've already had within LinkedIn Recruiter and, whatsoever. Okay, so that's a big change in the whole way we think about technology. Next one, think about the LinkedIn's competitors, that might be like, well, it's also interesting that those providers, usually they price quite similar to LinkedIn. So there's a moment when you have to think about whether you buy LinkedIn Recruiter or you buy something like that, because it's the same price, but maybe these will give you much more features and functionalities than what LinkedIn Recruiter can give to you. What else? We talked about email automation, and we had a few tools and toys at the end. All right. I guess that was it for now. That's what I wanted to share with you, and that's what I believe, what was the most important changes in the sourcing world in 2022. Dima, I'm back to you, and I'm all up for questions if you guys have any questions.
Wow, it was amazing, and thank you very much for such a great session. I was listening, and It was exciting, and I think now we are more prepared for this year, and we kind of summarized what happening, what technology is developing. It's so interesting to hear how it's all gradually developing, especially taking in mind your experience and how many years you were seeing what happening. You almost like drinking tea and like, yeah, show me what else can happen in this industry. So, and people saying you're on conferences, something, and you just like, okay, we will see. So yeah, thanks for this great overview. And I think our participants also a few more steps ahead of the game, of their competitors, with these new toys and new tools that you shared with them. So yeah, I think in the chat, people, please, could you write questions? We could just chat and ask. Yeah, everybody's just giving a thanks for the session. Maybe you have some things to ask. I think we have 15 seconds lag. So someone asking, yeah, source whale is a great source. Someone asked for URL, but it's already shared. I think, can
It's
you?
really fascinating that we work with a client today where they do almost everything manually, like via a human. And what fascinates me really nowadays is that that's what I learned from Vince, my colleague, that this whole talent, like tech stack mindset is just like, it's not just that, you're in a bunch of technologies, but really try to understand that how these technologies will talk to each other. How will they underlie our process? Like what type of data will you get from all of them? How your final dashboard will look like. That's future. And I can tell you, I've met just a handful of companies, who are that ahead. But hey, it's all possible. So I don't want to repeat myself. I'm just personally really fascinated by by this whole topic.
Someone, Caitlin asking, what is your thoughts on purpose jobs? I think it's some tool or ATS, something new for me as well. Yeah.
It's new for me, Kathleen, so I need to do my homework, and I need to look after what's purpose jobs. If you can help me with that one.
Yeah, it will be our homework, I think, with Balazs to research, because I'm also seeing it the first, maybe some local thing. Yeah, and maybe question from me: how would you like? There is so massive amount of tools, as you mentioned, and how to find your tool set? So just experimenting and connecting them, or like maybe you suggest to ask separate person in the team to just test all tools, like how this process works.
So I guess there are three answers to this question. Answer number one is that we all belong to various communities, right? Kathleen, I will check purpose jobs. Thanks for that. So we all belong to various communities, like this one, for instance. It is a community, and we learn from each other, right? So you go to an online conference, you go to a webinar, you go to a Facebook chat, or whatever, and you hear about these tools, and then you test them, you try them. I think that's really important point. You have to test them, because many recruiters, they hear about these tools and then they just walk away. But then nothing will change. You have to test them. You have to invest a little time to try them out, and like to just do the job. So that's one. That you go to these things. The second is that you have to think about your process, and you have to understand what you need. I mean, the challenge with this whole technology, at least that's my approach, is that I need to articulate what is missing for me. What do I want to achieve with that technology, right? Like what is the gap? Where is the gap within my process? I do something manually, or my colleagues do something manually, or we are unable to find some information. Whatever the business case is, you need to understand, you need to articulate, and then you have to find the tool for that. But then once you have a tool, there's a second challenge, because then no tool will be able to solve all of your problems. So you have to adapt, like your business case to the tools. Anyway, so the second is that you have to think about your process. What is missing really? Why would you buy we met someone, who's having high resi and seek out in the same time. I was like, why do you need those two? Like, like really, why? So because, but it's also a challenge that when you give more and more tools to your recruiters, like after a while, that will just create inefficiency for your team. And that's really important. Anyway, and the last one is that you just Google it, as long as Google still works, or you just chat GP it, so you just search for it. Quite often I just do this, like highlighting extension Chrome, enter, and let's see what comes up. So yeah, I guess that's how we work. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, because for junior sourcers or recruiters or any professional in our industry, Googling whether you have hard skills or soft skills or not for that, the main one is to be able to find information, to understand how technology Even sometimes we forget when we have new people, we teach them some automations, but sometimes like they need to know also how Google Drive works, how Google Spreadsheets works, all of that. And you can teach this, you just need like to find people who can Google it and understand this. So yeah, I found it during last years. Yeah.
I had to, Sylvia, I will send you the candidate lookup Chrome extension. I don't have access to the comments, so I will look up you and I will send you the link. Just to the comment. You know what? For a long time, and still, like when we train, like we tend to give all the tools in one. There's a class for that. But what I recently understood is that it's just more efficient that, well, you give the tool, you give all the toys to them, but then you have to do class by class. You say, okay, fine. Do you remember this link clump? Do you remember this tool? Okay, now we are going to use it. Do you remember this lookup? Now we are going to use it. And every class, every time you just touch like 2-3 tools, and then just do a little bit of like a practice, and then you move on. What is brilliant when a recruiter who is not so tech savvy, when she understands that basically she can use all of these extensions on her own and she's making progress, and it is really efficient. But to get there, the learning curve, like that takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and a lot of work. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think we are good with this. We just now will be all digesting all of the information and rewatching the series to just do a screenshot of everything. So yeah, before we will announce next what will be next week, I want once again to thank you, Balazs, to all of your great wisdom and insights, and generally for providing for our sourcing community and industry a lot of great things. And yeah, please subscribe to Balazs on LinkedIn and on other networks, and you will find even more interesting things. So once again, thank you, and hope to hear from you soon in next meetings.
And thank you so much for inviting Dima. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and before you go, don't close this small screen. I want to announce what will be next week. Yeah, so in general, as you understood here, we at Matchr, one of our services is kind of providing dedicated sourcers and recruiters who can join your in-house teams, whether you're startup or established well-known company. If you're struggling with finding candidates for certain positions, IT or non-IT, have significant hiring needs and don't have internal capacity to cover them, or if you're opening a hub or remote hub in a new country and need to have some talent research, salary mapping, and branding, we are here to help and would love to speak to you and support with your 2023 hiring plan. And for next week, like this session was amazing, but also we are looking to see you next week. There will be Sophie Okonkwo sharing with us, global talent recruiting expert from Microsoft, to sharing how to become a strategic sourcing expert and 6 must-known tips. And if you're struggling with how to do intake calls, like must-dos for intake calls, or ultimate sourcing strategy to come from delivery sourcer, just a supplier, to strategic expert, she will just tell you everything about it. So stay tuned, stay with us, subscribe, and hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.